Good evening, councillors, staff, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Ordinary Council meeting of the Council for June 2020. My name is Councillor Margaret Thomas, and as Mayor I will be chairing this meeting. I wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we are meeting on this evening and share the message of the elders. Kaya kaya broodiers, marman and yoks, nuna de mort, Nitchakulan Nalamaya, Kalamunda Budja, Yayi, Nandurapan, Wajulas Kulan, Jina, Nunada Nitcha, Nunga Budja, Nunga Burdias Kura, Yayi, Burda Burda, Kedalak, Burda, Kaya, Yunga. Hello, welcome to our leaders, men and women who have come to our place today this evening, and I'm happy to see you all standing on Noongar land of the elders, past, present and future. Thank you. The operations of Council and the agenda for this meeting are governed by the provisions of the Local Government Act, standing orders and rules of conduct. All matters of business listed in the agenda will be dealt with as separate decisions of Council. Thank you for your attendance and interest. CEO, are there any apologies?
Through the Chair, we have an apology from Councillor Sewell and also from Councillor O'Donnell.
Thank you. Public question time. We have a question from Mr. Peter Forrest, and I'll ask Mr. Forrest to please come to the microphone, state your name and address and ask your question.
Switch on. Yeah. No? Yeah, is that on now? Yeah. Oh. It is. Sorry, Madam Chair. My question, Madam Chair, sorry, councillors, staff present. My name is Peter Forrest, 36 Panoramic Terrace, Kalamunda. My questions relate to agenda item 10.1.3. That's asking councillors to adopt something called the Local Planning Policy 28 to advertise to the community for 21 days, quoting out of date 2015 regulations. My first question is, why would councillors agree to advertise for community input something like this that involves much controversial detail when you are aware that the state government is well advanced in major changes to the overall planning system? But at this moment in time, the community do not know what those changes involve. Secondly, is the timing appropriate when this LP28 is based on the existing state government Northeast sub-regional framework that is known in content to be imminently overhauled pursuant to the changes of the WA planning system? And thirdly, within that same paper and relating to financial considerations, there's an admission that activity centre plans can cost in excess of $200,000. Why would council support more of these being prepared under current staff guidance when the Kalamunda Town Centre activity centre plan cost well in excess of that figure, but in view of the local community it was and is a total disaster, despite council being persuaded I think it was March OCM, in the absence of public presence at the time, to pass it forward to the Planning Commission as an approved plan.
Thank you, Mr. Forrest. I will ask the Director of Development Services to respond to your questions.
Thank you for your questions, Mr. Forrest. I'll start with the state government frameworks being under review and why would this policy be prepared in that context. Local governments and state governments are forever planning. Planning never stops. If we were to wait for a point in time to prepare policies until plans were finalised or the planning system review was complete, we would never be preparing policies because the system is forever evolving. The policy before us is able to be reviewed and has account for and regard for the planning framework at that point in time. In regards to the Northeast Planning Framework being under review, it has been announced that it is under review, but there's been no timeframes or program for the review of the Northeast Sub-Regional Planning Framework. And in that context, it wouldn't be appropriate to defer a policy of this kind for that reason. And in relation to activity centre plans, activity centre plans are statutory requirements under the state planning framework for activity centres. Kalamunda and Forestfield, specifically within the city, are district centres and require activity centre plans to be prepared for them.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I want to pursue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, through the chair, can I just ask the media manager, could you make a comment about the community consultation on the Kalamunda Activity Centre plan? Mr Forrest claims that the community said it was a complete disaster. You took all the feedback. What was the general responses to the plan, please?
Thank you very much for the question. In relation to the Kalamunda Activity Centre plan project specifically, the project commenced with community visioning that actually included community members having direct input into the plan itself. So it was a very hands-on development that was led by the community with consultants assisting them. And from there, we did receive a fair number of submissions on the final draft, in actual fact, given that there had been so much community engagement at the commencement of the plan. It's really important to note that we find some of the largest numbers of submissions actually come in when a plan is being put out for final advertising, if its nature is particularly controversial. In cases where there's quite a high acceptance, then we can see lower numbers of submissions. But most of the submissions that were received, and Peter may want to comment on this as well, because I know that he also knows this back to front, were very detailed. So we saw submissions from some landowners where they were very considered, particularly our business owners, and they were looking to see improvements within the town centre. They were pleased that the city was progressing the activity centre plan, and they saw it as an opportunity. And I can recall one particular submission in which they specifically referenced the fact that it could mean that some of the cash in lieu funds that they had been made to actually pay in would be able to be spent within the town centre, and it was an amount of about $360,000. So they were really eager and keen to see amenity improvements and to see improvements in the town centre. In saying that, there are always specifics that they're looking after as well, and we did find that some of the submissions had very key considerations to areas, for example, right out the front of their particular business or location.
Thank you.
Sorry, I think
I still
Director,
hold
you
it was,
wanted to make a comment?
Through the Chair, thank you for your statement and your questions, Mr Forrest. In regards to the opinions that came out through the activity centre plan process, I mean, you're entitled to your value judgment. The submissions that were received were documented as part of the Council's final consideration, and all those submissions are available on the City's website for view. So, notwithstanding your opinion on the matter, anyone else in the gallery or the councillors have those submissions available to them on the public record.
Yeah, the submissions, as they were summarised, Madam Chair,
I'm sorry, Mr Forrest.
they
Thank
were
you.
misleading because...
I'm sorry, Mr Forrest, this is just a question time. We now have a deputation from Mrs Maria English. Mrs English, if you would like to come forward and state your name and address, and you have 10 minutes.
Good evening, Councillors and Mayor. My name is Maria English and I'm a resident of 12 Priory Road, Maida Vale. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Councillor Giordina for bringing the Priory Road residents' petitions to the attention of the Council. It is very much appreciated. Thank you, Councillor Giordina. Having read the agenda, it's encouraging to note that some strategies have been discussed to try and address the issues that concern the residents of Priory Road. Hopefully, the items listed under the details, analysis and recommendation points will be acted on, specifically the reduction of the speed limit along Priory Road, pedestrian refuge safety points and improvement of vehicle safety at the Maida Vale Priory Road roundabout. I'm pleased to note that the proposed acceleration lane on Kalamunda Road opposite Priory Road is not at this stage a part of the draft 2021 Capital Works program. It is mentioned also in the agenda that once the train station and the road Kalamunda interchange are completed, vehicle traffic flow may change. Let us hope that the traffic coming onto Kalamunda Road from Midland Road will utilise the easier access to Roe Highway South. However, habits die hard. Though I do think that the turn into Kalamunda Road from Midland Road, either going left or right, needs to be addressed rather than the proposed acceleration lane. Especially as there is a possibility that the West Australian Planning Commission will approve the City of Swan's application proposal to change 23.9 hectares of Commonwealth Government reservation land to urban zone along Midland Road, Bushmead. This will bring a whole new issue to light, with more traffic coming along Midland Road onto Kalamunda Road, as there is no other access to Roe Highway from Bushmead and Helena Valley. I'm still of the opinion that Priory Road would be safer as a local traffic-only road with access to Old Maida Vale Road and no access beyond the roundabout, or, as debated at the OCM on the 17th of December 2019, no right-hand turn onto Kalamunda Road from Priory Road. However, having said all of the above, I am thankful for the effort and work the Council is continuing to undertake to try and resolve the safety and traffic issues on Priory Road. Thank you.
Before you go, councillors, do you have any questions of Mrs. English? Thank you very much for coming to speak to us. The CEO, would you like to outline the applications for leave of absence?
Through the Chair, yes, we have 2 leave of absences. They are both up on your screens. Firstly, Councillor Lisa Cooper would like to be granted leave from the 19th of July to 25th of July 2020, and Councillor Thomas would be like to be granted leave 29th of July to 10th of August. If we could have a mover and a seconder, please.
Councillor Billage is moving, Councillor Blair is seconding. This is for both of the leave of absences. All those in favour? Carried unanimously, thank you. Confirmation of the minutes from the previous meeting. Councillors, you'll note that 6.1, the minutes of the special council meeting, have some additional explanation for the changes. So when you move this, it's including those. You have them on the screen and I believe you all have a copy. Can I have a mover that those minutes be accepted? Councillor Blair, seconded Councillor Giardina.
Say something? Sorry, Madam Mayor. Governance?
I'm sorry, this doesn't identify an item number, or we only have one item in that one, didn't we? I'd say.
Yep. So we've got a mover, Councillor Blair, seconded by Councillor Giardina, I think it was. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. I now confirm these minutes to be a true and accurate record of the proceedings of this council and sign them as such. We've got a second lot of minutes, the minutes of the ordinary council meeting of the 26th of May 2020. Do I have a mover? Councillor Ritchie, seconded by Councillor Blair. All those in favour? Thank you, carried unanimously. On the basis of the above motion, I now sign the minutes as a true and accurate record of the meeting of the 26th of May. There are no announcements by the member presiding without a discussion, and matters for which the meeting may be closed if councillors wish to ask questions about the confidential part of 10.4.1, the meeting will be closed. Otherwise, we will proceed as normal. Disclosure of interest. Are there any disclosure of interest, CEO?
Through the Chair, no, I haven't received any tonight. Thank you.
We now move on to reports. So 10.1.1, the dog local laws. The recommendation is on page 10. Are there any questions? If not, is there a mover for this motion? Councillor Stallard and seconded by Councillor Blair. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. 10.1.2, Community Health and Wellbeing Plan. Councillors, do you have any questions? Do I have a mover for the recommendation on page 14? Councillor Boyd, seconded by Councillor Cannon. There's going to be no debate. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. (10.1.3). Do I have any questions of the directors? No, then I'll ask for a mover. Councillor O'Connor, I understand you wish to foreshadow some amendments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's correct. Can I briefly talk to it?
Yes, I'll just get a seconder first. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Stallard. I'll go to you, Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councillors, in reading the attached policy, I felt that one of the paragraphs clearly outlined some of the reasons not to initiate planning, structured planning, for a number of valid reasons. I just felt that the paragraph omitted the benefits in certain circumstances to actually initiate the structured planning. So essentially it's just providing a bit of balance to the rationale within the policy.
Thank you. Councillors, is there going to be any debate?
I have a question.
Question, Councillor Village?
To the director, please. Could he just comment, please, regarding Councillor O'Connor's amendment there, please?
Through the chair, at an officer level, we're supportive of the amendment that Councillor O'Connor's put forward. The information in there is factual. There's particular instances where there are, it's warranted that the city and the council take a lead as a proponent in structure planning, and some of those examples are cited, particularly around Gateway WA, when there's been significant investment and there's been a need for the city to assist with coordinating planning outcomes in the area, and similarly for Forestfield North or High Wycombe South.
Are there any more questions? Is there going to be any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 10.2.1, the waste plan. Are there any questions? The officer recommendation is on page 38. Do I have a mover? Councillor O'Connor, seconded Councillor Cooper. Is there going to be any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. 10.2.2, the Pathways Asset Management Plan. Are there any questions? I would like a mover for the officer recommendation on page 46. Councillor Stallard, seconded by Councillor Ritchie. Is there going to be any debate, councillors? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. 10.2.3, the Parks Asset Management Plan. Any questions? May I please have a mover for the officer recommendation on page 52, Councillor Blair, seconded by Councillor Cooper. Is there going to be any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. The Non-Potable Water Action Plan. Are there any questions? Can I have a mover for the recommendation on page 57, Councillor Stallard, and seconded by Councillor Blair? Is there going to be any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Priory Road. Are there any questions? Councillor O'Connor.
Oh, sorry, just flagging. Happy to move, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Giardino, did you have a question or you want happy to move? Seconded. Do you have a question, Councillor? No. So we've got a mover, Councillor O'Connor, seconded by Councillor Giardina. Is there going to be any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. 10.4.1, councillors. You can ask questions about the body of the report, just not the confidential item. Are there any questions?
Madam Chair, if I may, look, I'm happy with the report, but The only thing that I think that we should be probably including in some of the stuff that we are looking moving forward to some of the reserves that we have right across the city, where we can actually have how we can retain, get rainwater off the big roofs that we're going to be building, how we can put solar panels through it. I think these are the type of stuff that we have to start doing. We do ask residents through our city. There's some through Picker and Brook that's built a big shed, and the other day he had 5 big rainwater tanks, big ones.
Can you turn this into a question, Councillor?
Yeah, so I'm asking, I'm getting there. So basically what I'm saying is, why aren't we doing it ourselves on projects of this nature? You know, we're talking about environmental stuff and all that. I think it'll be good that we start looking at things like that. If staff can, when they proceed down the track with all these things, if they can have a look at it, if we can incorporate it in there.
Could we get a response?
Yes, no, I take your point, and we will certainly look at that. We certainly have in the past. For example, the Hartfield Master Plan gave an amazing water solution, and we are retrofitting solar panels on contestable sites as we go. Would the manager community development like to add anything further in terms of sustainability initiatives in master planning, or?
Manager.
Through the Chair, thank you for the question. I support the comments as provided by the CEO. Further to this, we always consider any sustainable initiatives as part of detailed planning design work.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Councillor O'Connor? Are you happy to move? Just make sure there's no other questions. So I've got a mover, Councillor O'Connor, and seconded by Councillor Billich. Is there going to be any debate?
Madam Chair, can I just make a very brief comment?
Absolutely.
I just want to thank the Manager of Community Development and his team for a really good planning process. It was done in a different way, and I think it got a much better result. So a big thanks to them.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. I assume there's going to be no debate, so I'm going to put the motion for the officer recommendation on page 74. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Execution of documents, 10.4.2. Are there any questions? Could I have a mover for the officer recommendation on page 78? Councillor O'Connor, seconded by Councillor Blair. Is there going to be any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Delegations. Councillors, do you have any questions about delegations? Can I have a mover for the recommendation on page 83? Councillor Boyd, seconded by Councillor Blair. Is there going to be any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Draft monthly financial statements. Are there any questions? I would like to move this motion. Councillor Thomas on page 91. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Stallard. Is there going to be any debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. 10.5.2. Councillors, you have in front of you and have received a couple of questions from Councillor Ritchie and Councillor Stallard, and I thank them for both asking the questions and sharing with all councillors. Are there any other questions? No. I would like a mover for the officer recommendation on page 78. Councillor O'Connor, seconded by Councillor Thomas. If there's not going to be any debate, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Rates and debtors report. Do we have any questions? Then could we have a mover for the motion on page 103? Councillor Stallard, seconded by Councillor Blair. Is there going to be any debate, councillors? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. I don't have any motions of which previous notice has been given. Councillors, do you have any questions without notice? Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To the CEO, could the CEO please update the council as to when we can return to normal in the chamber in terms of the public gallery and the sort of numbers we can have here?
Through the chair, we are currently working through the announcements made yesterday for stage 4, which appear to give us greater relief, but we still have the 2 metre rule in place. So that way, that means that we can't go back to normal just yet until the 2 metre is removed. So I think we'll work towards that. Phase 5, there's been 2 new phases added to the roadmap all of a sudden this week, and we think that phase 5 will probably release that, and then we could go back to normal, so potentially in July. If not, we would maintain this type of approach until that's released.
Thank you, and I'd just like to make a comment that the staff have all helped us work through the COVID restrictions really easily, and we've been able to have our meetings and still abide by the rules with just a bit of a change, so we do thank you for that. Councillor Ritchie, you have a question.
I do, and I would like to just echo the Mayor's comments about how well the City have handled this. Well done. My one is actually, I had a question today from a resident about the likely resumption of public agenda briefings, and just wondering if that's on the same sort of timeline, please.
Yes, July meeting we're going to open up back to the public. I think though we will maintain this type of a format until we've got the the restrictions completely removed. Otherwise we won't be able to fit all of us as well as community in the function room. But July definitely we'll be having a public agenda briefing.
Are there any other questions, councillors? No, there are no questions by members of which due notice has been given, and there is no urgent business, and there is no need to close the meeting to the public. So with that, we will close this meeting at 6:57. Thank you very much, councillors.